Okay.
This
Whoa.
is
What?
deportations by administrative cycle. And what you see here is
Whoa.
Trump, for most of his presidency, doing about what Obama was doing until his last year in office, where his
Yeah, in fact,
deportations
even
went
kind
up.
of lower to start, which is interesting.
But Trump's deportations completely dwarf Biden's deportations.
Yeah, no,
The
are
nu-
dwarfed by. This is so interesting. I'm so glad you researched this because I mean, you may have not been that intrigued by this, but I was like, what is going on?
So you see an explosion in illegal border crossing under the Biden administration.
Oh yeah, they're like monster asleep.
Pretty quiet out there.
Yeah, a bit too quiet if you ask me. Give me those.
Just seems like Mexicans don't try to cross into the U.S. as much as they used to, you know?
No, they're out there, Charlie. Plotting their next move. It's the curse of success, Charlie.
What the hell? Sir? Aren't them Mexicans running into Mexico?
That don't make sense.
You're going the wrong way!
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here today. Today we are going to be talking about something that has been very interesting for me.
I've been so confused by this, and I'm so glad you're going to set me straight.
I just dismissed it entirely when people first were talking about it.
Really?
So there's two things that people have noted, and there's been a number of articles that have been like, if you read like news, a lot of the progressive press has been lauding recently that Biden's deportations were vastly outnumbering Trump's deportations, even within the new administration. And they were lauding this at the same time as they're freaking out about people being deported. And what an evil guy
How
Trump
could they
is.
deport? Oh, they're not deporting at any at all. The Biden deported more.
Yeah, it was the same during the election cycle where they were like, Biden deported more people during his term as president than Trump did during his term.
And deporting is evil.
And deporting is evil. And I'm like, okay, so I think both sides just sort of like ignored this statistic. Because,
or they're like trying to selectively speak to different crowds at the same time.
Well, no, I think that the conservative side is like, look, you get to choose what you want to message to me. Trump says deportations are good. He appears to be actively trying to deport people. I'm looking at what ICE is doing. And I just don't believe this. Like, I'm just not going to read this. I'm not going to engage with this information.
Yeah.
And progressives are like, oh, this is a way to selectively dunk on conservative parties, but obviously think of their families when Trump's doing it.
The children. Yeah.
And so what I'm here left. What's going on here? How is it even conceivably possible that when Trump is like gearing up ISIS, sorry, not ISIS, ICE, to the extent that he's gearing it up, that and I see all these people, I hear about all of this happening. How is it even possible that this could be true? Is this just a complete fabrication? It is true. It's true for more evil reasons than you could conceivably imagine. And we're going to get into the data.
Oh, I am so excited for this.
Okay, so when I was asking about this, the article you're referencing is a Newsweek article titled Immigrant Deportations Removal, Trump, Biden Comparison Charts, and a bunch of different, progressive pieces were running with this. Oh, Trump isn't, deporting as many people as he should be. The first 2 weeks of Trump's second term, January 20th to February 3rd, 2025, approximately 5,693 undocumented illegals were deported or removed in 121 different countries. This rate of deportation is lower than Biden's last reported monthly statistics from 2024, which showed an average of 12,200 removals per week. If Trump's administration maintains its pace, it could result in about half the number of deportations compared to Biden's complete fiscal year in 2024. I will note here, Daily Wire did a piece where they point out that there is some shadiness going on with these numbers. This is far from an apples-apples comparison. They say the figure used by Newsweek refers to any repatriation, a broad segment that even includes Border Patrol agents turning people away at the border. In reality, according to publicly accessible data, the Biden administration removed just under 48,000 200,000 illegals in all of the fiscal year 2024, the most of Biden's entire term. If you compare apples to apples, the number of illegal immigrants deported by ICE, you'll see that the Trump administration has already been deporting 3 times as many illegal immigrants per week as the Biden administration ever did. The problem here is this is also not an apples to apples comparison, as Biden administration didn't use ICE in the same way that the Trump administration is using ICE, and they used a different, way shadier mechanism to do their deportations, which we will get to in just a second. And where this is really striking is at the start of the Biden administration, when the numbers of deportation were much higher. Now, we go into the specific deportation numbers during Biden's presidency, 2021 to 2024, approximately 4.7 million individuals were deported or expelled, including removals under Title 42. We'll get to this in a second.
Okay, because I have no idea what that is.
Well, I'll tell you what it is before we get to the. It allowed people to be exported if they were from a country that had any sort of medical issue. Not exported, deported, whatever.
Okay.
So
if I show up as a migrant to the U.S. but I have cancer.
No, it's like if your country has COVID or some other horrifying disease.
So I don't infect people with my.
You can be yes.
So if I show up with like swine flu, then they can get rid of me.
So comparatively, Trump only deported about 3.3 million people. So keep in mind, Trump first administration 3.3 million deportation. Biden's administration 4.7 million deportation.
Huh.
So now this is where it gets interesting. The Title 42's role, because this explains a lot of it, and we'll be getting into the horrifying nature of this.
The sickness thing. Okay, this is intriguing.
So Biden heavily used Title 42 to expel 2.8 million individuals. Trump, during his entire time, only deported 200,000 individuals as Rule 42.
And 42. Yet he was, I mean, like the onset of the pandemic. That's very interesting.
Yes. So this is during the period when the Democrats were like, we get to be fascists without any repercussions. We now completely control the media. As we see, even when it's clear the public is turned against them, the media is still simping for the Dems so hard. And it's like, well, I thought you guys would at least like take the D out of your mouth for a second when you realize the guy was weird and diseased and about to pass out. You know, like, could you take it out for a second and look around and be like, what's going on here? But what was happening, and we'll get to this before we get into the numbers, because the numbers get more interesting as you go into them, is Trump was doing deportations the legal way.
Okay.
And Biden was just saying, if your country has COVID, we can skip the entire court system and get rid of you.
So it's like the loophole way. There's a legal way and there's a loophole way. Just
to remind you, because the numbers may not have really sat with you the first time I said them, Biden deported 2.8 million individuals this way that skips the court system. Trump only deported 0.2 million individuals this way. 2.8 million to 0.2 million. And they just didn't care, but they actually had to do it because the rates of illegal immigration were so high during their period.
Right.
And we'll get into, because the net, this isn't what I talked about here, the net illegal immigrants was much higher under Biden than Trump.
Right. So yes. Yeah, I've seen those graphs. Yeah.
He had higher, this gets so confusing. Yeah, higher deportations, higher net illegal immigration. Let's get into all of this. In terms of the numbers, though, some people have casted doubt even on these initial numbers. Cesar Chonmetico Gracia Honduras, an immigration expert for Ohio State University, told Newsweek, "I am doubtful that they could produce an accurate report of ICE's enforcement action so quickly. The video was released on Tuesday morning and claims to report data through Monday. I would be astonished if an agency that has never proven itself capable of releasing accurate data in a timely manner could process into its detention system people as late as Monday afternoon that someone at DHS headquarters could count and produce a video first thing this morning." So basically he's like, look, this data is probably wrong anyway. But actually, then how does that explain the last Trump administration? Right. How does that explain, right? So I'm going to put on screen here for our watchers.
You're sending it on WhatsApp? Dankeschön. Okay. Whoa.
This is deportations by administrative cycle. And what you see here is Obama at the beginning, not doing much, but doing, some. Trump, for most of his presidency, doing about what Obama was doing until his last year in office. Where
in fact, even kind of lower to start, which is interesting.
But Trump's deportations completely dwarfed Biden's deportations.
Yeah. No,
The
are
num-
dwarfed by
Yeah,
Biden's.
dwarfed Biden.
Yeah.
The numbers are not even close. And Biden's deportations go down over time. I should note this.
Yeah,
This idea
yeah.
that, oh, they did so many deportations at the end. They did not. They started with tons of deportations. So what the Biden deportations were, largely speaking, and you can see the Trump deportations led like directly into them, was a COVID power freakout about trying to lock down the country. That's really what you're seeing here. We can do whatever we want because now we're a dictator. That's basically what happened during COVID. Like, do we forget that like people were banned for platforms for saying things that everyone now knows is true? That people were like, this is like a big thing that like we as society cannot forget, that people lost their jobs, their businesses for no reason other than so Kamala's VP could feel like a cool guy, where he implemented the system where you could snitch on your neighbors and call the cops and have them arrested for 6 months for leaving their house
God,
during
yeah.
COVID.
The
Like,
famous COVID snitch line. Yes.
so this is like, I was looking at all this and I was like, okay, so like what is going on here, right? Well, a big part of what happened is it turns out that when you are giving immigrants, and Biden was, we know this now, see our USAID video, free money when you come to the country,
Woo.
no matter how many you're exporting, you're going to be getting huge amounts of illegals coming into the country. If you advertise to the entire world, look at how great the US is, we'll do anything for you. And here I'll do the scene from South Park, like it's so great in LA for the homeless.
Oh,
All right, hit it. Let's hope to crash this works. California love. California is nice to the homeless. California, super cool to the homeless. Lots of rich people giving change to the homeless. They're so nice to the homeless. Built a port about it.
They're leading them away.
Get down to down now. In the city of Venice. Right by Matt's house. You can chill if you're homeless.
That's basically what the Biden administration was doing for immigrants the entire time the administration was operational.
yeah.
And where these numbers begin to make a lot more sense, and where the narrative falls apart, and where Trump is just holistically a more moral person than any Democrat, is when you look at the numbers of illegals coming in. And people can be like, what do you mean by this? If you are out there saying, what about the families that are being split up? If you're doing some big crying thing on TV about the families that are being split up, more families were being split up under Biden than under Trump. And if now you're asking, how is that possible?
Yeah, that I honestly am surprised to hear that. How is that possible?
It's because illegal immigrants have been self-deporting under Trump
Oh.
and not coming into the country under Trump.
Oh, wait, okay, wait, you mean like now? Now they're just like, oh, I've been warned.
Yeah. Basically, somebody said, we're
Oh.
done paying your bills. And they're like, oh, okay, bye. That is
I
what's
mean-
happening here. If you
Self-policing.
want to get
Yeah,
on
which
the-
means like you have to pay less for the deportations. I mean, fewer flights, etc. Right?
We are looking at, in terms of families being split up, probably more than a third less under Trump administrations than Biden administrations, even with all of these ICE raids. And these ICE raids, you know, they're targeting criminals and stuff like that primarily. They might catch up other people in the sweeps, but I mean, they're all criminals because they're in the country illegal, but you understand what I mean. But the Biden stuff was just like, oh, anyone that we can get away with based on our internal, like, ethnic whatever criteria, right?
Mhm.
So now we're going to talk about the decline in people crossing the border
Okay.
with this South Park scene in mind, right? Like, of like all the immigrants.
Yeah,
all
like we'll
the- all-
give things to you for free.
Right,
And,
okay.
Yeah.
So the decline in January 2025, during the week of January 20 to 26, U.S. Border Patrol and Customs Border Protection encountered only 7,287 irregular migrants at the US-Mexico border, a
Okay.
sharp drop compared to previous months. In December 2024, CBP reported 47,000 illegal border crossings, which was already the lowest months since 2020.
Wait,
The
so
first
wait. So it dropped from 47,000 to 7,000?
and the 47,000 was already the lowest month since 2020.
Oh, wow. I think this is one of these great examples of how Trump, through his action, creates a chilling effect. And this is something that we first really discovered with things like foreign policy, where just things didn't happen under his watch because many foreign leaders were like, well, I don't want to I don't want to know what he does if I
Yeah, I don't
make a
want to know what he
move."
does. I'm not going to invade Ukraine because who knows if he sends a bunch of missiles at Moscow.
All those golden
He
bears.
could.
Yeah. And so this is another example of that, which I mean, of course, why would I not have thought of that? But that is so surprising. Oh, that's so cool and interesting.
And if the scale of illegal immigrants increased so much under the Biden administration that it reached 2 million encounters per year compared to 300,000 to 500,000 encounters just a decade before his presidency.
What?
And now I'll share with you a diagram of the illegal crossings over time.
Yes, please. This is so interesting. I'm so glad you researched this because I mean, you may have not been that intrigued by this, but I was like, what is going on? I'm so confused.
So you see an explosion in illegal border crossing under the Biden administration.
Oh yeah, they're like monster asleep.
It's like mods are asleep. It's like 8x or something previous
Yes.
levels.
Wow, wow.
And Trumps are already back to around what they were during the previous Trump administration cycle.
Would you look at that? Yeah, mods are back. Okay.
Mods are back.
Yes.
It's really just a perception thing. That's what this is 100% downstream of. And the horrifying nature of this for Democrats is it means that all of these horrifying statements they have about caring for families being split up and everything like that, that was happening because and more during the Democratic administration because they were so horrifyingly racist and inefficient
Yeah.
that it happened under the Trump administration.
This is the like secret or super underrated element of a strong president or king or prime minister, which is you don't have to pay for anything. Like just them merely existing and being them gives
Just
you better
being
deals.
you. It's like, Elon
better
Musk doesn't pay for a
agreement.
marketing team.
You know what? It's like, we're looking at making a pretty big purchase and we're having you do all the negotiation. Because if I came in and did the negotiation, they would walk all over us and give us terrible terms. And so we just put you there. Like I'm literally doing all the work. I'm filling out all I'm like even signing the documents for you, which I probably legally shouldn't do. But like I'm doing all the stuff. But like we just have you go in and propose stuff because that way they're not, as likely to screw us over. Which is so like, and this is the same thing is with Trump. They're like, well, like if he thinks he's getting a bad deal, sorry, hold on. She's got stuck. Oh, girl. Where do you think you're going? There you go. Yeah, they just know that Trump won't stand for it and that Biden was asleep at the wheel. This is exciting. I mean, I feel like I'm getting this whole additional thing that's free, that doesn't cost anything.
We don't have to. This is the crazy thing. And it's not just that parts of this are costing way more than they should. Like ICE, if they're picking up an illegal migrant from a jail cell that requires one officer to go and handle that to no risk to them, where the Democrats are risking ICE officers' lives by putting these people back in their homes. So whole groups need to raid these homes. Innocents could be killed.
Yeah.
And you see this in these sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities should be called murder and rapist cities because that's what they are. The entire system is so funny when you actually look into all of this data. It edifies everything the Republicans are doing. And it makes the Democrats, even their most passionate arguments, like think of the families that are being split up, completely bounce back in their own faces because they are doing that more. And I completely agree with everything you're saying here. And we need to talk about the larger Democratic problem right now with messaging outside of this.
Yeah.
Because we've had some conversations about this. Is the Republicans have been doing a flood the zone strategy. Just going out there with everything all at what, like we haven't even had an episode on like the Department of Education being shut down or the Department of Protection being shut down. I'm awaiting for more data. Okay, I'm waiting for more data. We'll do it eventually. I don't want to waste your guys' time until I can give you like a more full picture of what's going on here. But the reality is that Dems across the board, and you consume much more Democratic media than I do, Simone, they're just like, I'm not even going to cover this anymore.
Yeah, they're not talking about it. They're only the leftist content I'm getting obviously is a lot of butthurt about Doge and about Trump's executive orders and about Trump's appointments. And then it's a lot of actually hate just for Democrats in general. So I don't know. The party's very much still TBD on where it's going to end up.
Well, no, they seeded the zone. They're basically like, and Democratic watchers of media and stuff like that are like, I'm just not going to watch this anymore. Like it's too confused. It's too over the board. What Trump?
Yeah. I guess Trump has flooded the zone, and Democrats have evacuated the zone.
They have evacuated the media zone, and if you look at media, it's just constant panic about Trump. Oh my God, our kid right now is riding in a tractor that the little tractor thing he got. Octavian hopped in the barrel to ride back to the garage. Oh no, he's riding him in circles. Oh, that's so fun. He's riding around in the little tractor barrel thing. No, but the Democratic response to this has been very interesting. Like I expected them to mount like a full-blown they like with the Department of Education decided to go and harass this security guard, right? This like random guy standing in front. I'm sure you've all seen the video by now. And they're just like, no, we're not going to let you in. And they're like, but we're a congressperson. It's like, well, then what business do you have in the Department of Education? You're not going to do anything but like screech at people. You are as Asmongold put it, a full boss raid of Karens. And this guy's tanking the entire thing. And everybody saw that. Nobody was endeared by that. And if you look at Reddit today, like I go to Reddit today and it's all anti-Trump stuff. But here's what people aren't noticing if you go to Reddit today. So, okay, let's just go to like the top of Reddit today. This is not what Reddit used to be like. So I got Kids Are Effing Stupid, which is one of my favorite subreddits. It's an anti-Trump thing where Elon's kid is picking his nose in the White House. Like whatever, like how mean-spirited could you be? This is the top post I'm getting. It's got 25 upvotes. The next one is Advice Animal on Musk, which is like just mean about Elon Musk. 5.1K upvotes.
Oh my God. It's as though like the vast majority of Americans, well, not vast majority, it's as though the plurality of Americans doesn't exist.
Yeah, if you go down here, it's a big shot Republicans, Advice Animal, Winnie the Pooh meme, 319 upvotes. Go down here, it's an R GIFs, okay? And it's a Elon Musk thing making fun of Trump with a gift of him having like a little robot dog with Trump's face on it. 649 upvotes. The next one I have is an R Pix one, a master and an apprentice, which is Elon Musk taking the master. Look, 7 upvotes. This is what the top of Reddit is these days. No one is using this site anymore.
It's so funny because I think Redditors sort of point to Reddit as being like the thing that saves dead internet. This idea that like the way to circumvent dead internet is to just Google like something Reddit, because then you'll find some archival Reddit post that was actually useful before AI.
Well, maybe when Reddit used to be used by people.
And yet Reddit now is like just as bad.
And if you look at Reddit, like views, they look super high. Like Reddit right now is like, oh, we're viewed by so many more people than we were historically. And I'm like, I don't understand how that's possible. I scrolled down to the next Trump meme I could find. It's Elon's kid picking his nose on R Pix, a mainstream Reddit subreddit, 39 upvotes. Like, this is wild. The next one I get is another R Advice Animal with the kid saying, my dad owns you, B. And it's got 1 upvote and 1 comment. This is not the way, as somebody who proposed to my wife on Reddit and went viral for that, is the first thing we really went viral for. Your average entire front page of Reddit would be in the tens of thousands of upvotes. You would see nothing with like 3 or 4 upvotes unless it had just been posted. And this stuff was posted like an hour ago or something. Like, or 10 minutes ago. Like, this is wild that we're seeing this. And it's because the leftist media spaces, whether it's Drudge or the Reddit or anything like that, they have gone so insane that no one wants to engage with them anymore. And it's not just insane. If you're a leftist and if you believe on this, they make you feel bad now. Let's finally wrap this up with talking about Trump Derangement Syndrome, because I've seen some people analyze this.
Say that again, because you were kind of talking away from me. So
Trump Derangement Syndrome. Let's talk about this. I've seen people talking about this. On a YouTube video that went quite viral that I saw on the topic, the thesis is it was just taking the worst possible interpretation of anything Trump was doing.
Yeah.
Simone and I had a conversation about this morning, and I disagree with this. Do you want to go into our theory on this?
Well, I think you and I have different theories. So my theory is that Trump Derangement Syndrome is similar to the dynamic that Scott Alexander talks about in his blog post on the early spread of Christianity. And that, like, once basically a critical mass of the people in your lives have joined a cult, and I think that what's going on is that anyone with Trump Derangement Syndrome literally doesn't know anyone who does not have it, for the most part, or at least who isn't super leftist, and has no exposure to, especially in any sort of like caring or loving relationship that isn't super dehumanizing, someone who supports Trump. So my argument, and this means it's totally disprovable, is that there's no one with Trump Derangement Syndrome who also loves and intellectually engages with someone who supports Trump. And that it's a result of basically being surrounded by other people who share the same delusion and who also sort of prevent them, like, heavily dehumanize. And I really, really mean dehumanize those who support Trump. Like, they're really not seen as human or logical or at all like, quote unquote, us. They're just these crazy people who don't understand reality or science or anything reasonable, and who don't care about human rights and human dignity, and are not empathetic, and are sociopaths, and are just monsters. I furthermore think that the reason why Trump Derangement Syndrome isn't just I hate MAGA people syndrome, but rather actual derangement, because leftist culture also has this thing that pathologizes anything that otherwise would just be an inconvenience, right? Like, if, for example, a teen has body dysmorphia, well, it's not just, oh yeah, you're going through awkward teen years. Everyone kind of hates their body for a while when they're going through their teen years. It's, hormones, it's gross, it's kind of uncomfortable. Instead, it's, no, you're trans, let's help you change your gender. Or, maybe you're kind of sad, your job sucks, like, things aren't fun. Well, maybe you kind of just try to work through it and make your life better. No, you're depressed and you need to see a therapist for the rest of your life, and you have an anxiety issue, you need to be medicated. And so I think that the reason why it becomes Trump Derangement Syndrome is that you can't just acknowledge that things are wrong and or that you want to fix them from an external standpoint. When things are acknowledged as wrong, that means that you are undergoing trauma, and therefore it's your problem, and you need to see a therapist about it, and you need to seek help for it because it is damaging you. And that's why I think it's derangement. But I think you had a slightly different theory, that it wasn't just about complete.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it is. I mean, I think that's a part of it, but I think a bigger part of it is, on the left, there has become this tendency to identify the core of your identity with some marginalized group. This is really important because this is how your status within their society is determined. And now they have expanded the marginalized groups you can identify with like marginal differences in your gender presentation, where people can be like, I'm, bi whatever, and they're literally just like a normal cis person. Like, they don't need to do anything. There's no cost to this. It's just like, I sometimes feel a little girly. I guess that means you need to make my entire thing this now, and all of my problems in life are the result of this. So that's one thing, but it's also not just that. It's like, okay, I'm a little autistic. Okay, then that's like my full thing now. I'm a little, like depressed, or I'm a little whatever. Whatever your thing is, it's like your full identity, and you are a marginalized group because of this. And now
it's also about identification, I guess, that like any proclivity you have, like in the past, for example, I loved cats as a kid. Yeah. But now it's like, well, if I love cats, that means I'm an otherkin, and I actually believe I'm a cat, and then I become a furry, and then I'm a part of this community. And what you're saying is, like, in the past, it used to be like, like I hate the elected politician, and that was just a thing. But now it's I hate the elected politician, therefore I'm a never Trumper. Therefore,
No,
this is
that's not the point I'm making.
okay.
So you're at almost, I'd say probably like 70%. And actually, we've seen this in the data. If you look at people who identify a mental disorder as a major part of their identity, like for women who are young, it's something like 73% or something right now. So this is the crowd that's voting for the left, right? Okay. So they have identified themselves in these marginalized groups. And during this last campaign cycle, they identified Trump as promoting the extinction or being the core enemy of their marginalized group. And so if you are one of these individuals and you have
He's
friends
literally
that are
you are Anne Frank. You are hiding in
you are
your
literally, these people are living their lives,
Oh.
emotionally speaking, as if they are Jews and Nazis literally control our society and the Holocaust is like
Okay.
well underway.
Right.
And when they
Okay.
look out their window and they look at the shopping mall, that's what they're seeing because it
Okay.
allows them to masturbate this fantasy. And this fantasy is very important for them because it justifies all of their failures, their lack of action, and
Yeah.
everything they've been doing for the past year in their life, all the dehumanization of others, etc.,
Mhm.
for the past year in their lives. This is where this punch a Nazi thing comes from. They literally think that there's like Nazis out there. They think that they have the right to just attack random people who support with the majority of American support. 70% of Americans think Trump's doing what he said he would do in the
What
campaign.
number of people do you think have been punched under the punch a Nazi meme? Like more than 10 or fewer?
Hundreds
than
of thousands.
What? Oh.
I think that you may misunderstand because you don't go to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like protests or anything. If you got in the way, and I've seen this in London, like every day, the protests shouting death to the Jews, death to the Jews. You see this in the London protests and people, you know, they're like, oh, that's not so, oh, from the river to the sea. Sorry. The euphemism for death to the Jews. If you walk by this, I remember I had walked by this protest and I walked by a group of Orthodox, not Orthodox, but ultra Orthodox Jews. And I was like, you guys need to walk the other way. This group will attack or potentially kill you. Like that's the world we live in now that the left attempted to normalize and that we are part of. So I think that when you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm literally like Anne Frank, or I think for a lot of these people, even worse, they're like, oh, it's my friend. I have so many trans friends whose Trump is going to erase. Trump isn't erasing them. He's erasing their ability to molest little girls. Okay. Like, can we talk about like how that was a problem? How it was a problem that what's his face? The guy who did the swim thing and everyone was like, oh, he's so amazing. So great. How could they? And then it came out that he was showing his unhandled nethers, so his penis, to underage women every single swim meet. That we used to historically like be like, oh, you're not trans, you're a flasher who is targeting underage girls. That's a problem. And they're like, no, we'll make this person the key icon of our movement. And I think that because of this, because when Trump challenges their ability to participate in intramoral sports, because that's the same as murdering them, right? Saying you have an intrinsic advantage in intramoral sports. This is unfair. Feminists fought really hard to give women separate teams and leagues and everything like that. Trump fights against this, right? And I think every reasonable human does fight against this. I love it when I talk to some leftists, they're like, well, all sports are unfair. And I'm like, yeah, but feminists fought to carve out this small space that was safe for women. Why do you hate them so much? Can't we agree? Yeah, all sports are unfair due to biology, but we don't need to make them extra unfair. We don't need to watch a biological male beating up a biological female on TV. That feels really uncomfortable for most people because they see the intrinsic evilness of allowing this to happen when this woman worked with the limitations that are placed on all women to become the very best in the world at what she was doing. But by the way, for the people who are wondering, like the Olympics thing, if you bought into the Democrat, the core person who was like, no, I've always been a woman and I had a disease or whatever, right? There's actually video footage of her, I'll say her because, you know, that's the way she identifies now, on a talk show from, I think, like 3 or 4 years before, where she is dressed as a male, identifying as a male, and using male pronouns.
Oh, no.
So it appears that this whole woman thing only started with the Olympics, and a lot of this, oh, they've always been doing this, is just coming from parents being like, well, now my daughter's head of the Olympics. I'll, take that on board. But it was not an actual real thing. This is the person who had always identified as male. And I think, because they look like and have the physicality of a male, like this is obvious when you're looking at this, like that's why they would have done this, right? And I think that when you're like, oh, they're going to come and hunt down my friends in their house, the like with the ICE raids, they're like, oh, I have Hispanic friends, and it's like, well, they're going after illegal immigrants. Are they illegal immigrants? And usually they're like, no. But like, there was all these reports of like Native Americans being arrested over this, and then the head of the Navajo Nations had to come out and be like, there has not been a single confirmable report that I have been able to trace down of this ever happening. So it appears to be mostly fabrications, because the leftists want to be like, oh, anyone who's brown is being those, like, and people who came over illegally, and like less than the Biden administration. But they want to act like, well, if I'm not Anne Frank, then my friends are Anne Frank, and I'm going to be this good moral person who cares about them. When if you did actually care about Hispanic children, migrant children, more harm was being done to them under the Biden administration. The cages for them existed under the Biden administration on the border. All of this stuff was happening under the Biden administration, and at a higher level. Why didn't you care then? Because you don't care about them. All of this is about an act for you, where you get to play the victim and get to hide in your house and be horrified. Because at the end of the day, we learned that when humans have access to whatever they could possibly want, all the forms of hedonism they can want, because that's not our society today, see our prep episode, that what they really want is a removal of personal responsibility. To just be able to be like, I'm a victim, everyone I know is a victim, and I'm just fighting for the good guys, instead of actually considering who is suffering because of your actions.
I guess that makes sense, actually, when you frame it that way. That checks out.
Love you, Simone. Any final thoughts on this and their horrifying narrative and all of the statistics and all that?
One, I actually think Trump Derangement Syndrome is going down. And I think that Trump's approval ratings indicate a lot of cognitive dissonance in Americans. I mean, even if you hate everything that Trump does, I think there's a lot of people who just admire the fact that an elected politician is actually delivering what he promised. This is just unbelievable. Like, it runs against the first political fundamental my parents ever taught me is that you vote someone into office and they disappoint you. That's like literally the first political lesson I ever remember learning. I remember exactly where I was in a car, like driving through some part of Oakland with my mother, and her saying that. And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy, but it's also so true. And the fact, like, this is the first time I've ever really seen that being challenged. And so I really think that that's starting to break a lot of norms. They may think that, not their guy, but you got to hand it to him. He's getting things done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have been really shocked by how effective he's been as a president. Reddit, there's constantly, like, on the front page, like, memes of, like, the United meme of, like, we hate Elon, like the right and the left. And it's like, no, I watch right-wing content. I don't know anyone other than Steve Bannon, who's like a crusty old goober who doesn't like Elon. Steve Bannon, we saw what happened when your team ruled the White House. Nothing. You couldn't even get the basic things you claim to care about, like transgender people, out of sports. Like, I'm sorry, I appreciate effectiveness. And all of us rightists do, and they are nailing it right now. And this has just been a very crazy time to live through, where it's like, oh, a good politician. I didn't expect this, especially given his first administration. I was disappointed in him. He was I don't want to say
he underestimated the extent to which the deep state would
lie, justify their position.
Like, he was sandbag and stonewall at every step of the process. That is still happening, but this time they expected it and were ready for it. Trump thought he could go in and drain the swamp, but he didn't understand the swamp now. This is Trump post swamp training. he's gone in. He's been trained by Yoda. He's done this stuff.
He's
And
done
now
the swamp training by Yoda, and he's now lifting the ship from the swamp,
it's
which is
the
America.
return of the Trump, and he's gonna kick some ass. So
All right. Well, I love you to death, Simone. This has been a lot of fun talking to you about this. I am just shocked when I went over this data because it was very different than I anticipated. And I've realized that the right-wing spaces unfortunately do bring a lot of echo chamber as well. Like I feel like a lot of people don't have good media anymore, and I really aspire to be that with my political biases stated up front, because I look at the right-wing media that I like. So like I really like Clownfish TV, I really like Nuxanor, I really like Leaflet.
Asmongold, Leaflet.
Asmongold. I want to include Leaflet in this because I actually haven't seen her cover this, but I've seen Asmongold, Nuxanor, and Clownfish TV in recent videos, like long after this has been debunked, report that the government was paying organizations like Politico to like $8 million to say horrible things about Republicans. And they'll admit, they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I mean, this was for subscriptions, but like these subscription prices are suspicious. And I would agree with that if the $8 million was accurate, but the actual price is $25K in the last year, $8 million across all departments. It wasn't just USAID. Like as soon as you begin to go over it and you're like, oh, these departments collectively make up 7% of the entire US economy, with their purchases of Politico subscriptions over a period of years make up that amount, when you're considering these are the ultra expensive, like unique subscriptions. Like, look, it's bad money being spent, but it's not a conspiracy in the way it's being talked about as a conspiracy. And it makes me sad because these are media sources that I used to consider very trustworthy. And now I'm like, well, shit, man.
Well, look, now we're even getting to the point where I feel like I'm getting more of my news directly from primary sources, which is great. Than before, I remember actually being so excited when really with the Obama presidency, that was the first time when a presidency decided to begin to really speak directly to the public through social media and other direct channels. And now it's getting so direct. Like the recent press conference with President Trump and Elon Musk, where X was present. I'm learning things that I had not heard anywhere else and I had not seen covered by the New York Times or any other media outlet. For example, like how retirements are processed by the federal government. Did you see this clip?
No, I didn't.
Elon Musk was told that they could only do like 10,000 a month or something, like 10,000 retirements a month. And he's like, wait, why? Like that didn't matter. And they explained to him that the retirement paperwork was physical paperwork that had to be filled out like manually. So this isn't like, this is, I mean, obviously anyone could make this an instantly computerized system. Like this does not need to be physical paperwork, but it gets worse. So then the retirement like package paperwork and all the calculations and stuff, which is done manually, apparently, for like, how much they're owed and their pension and everything. Then the retirement paperwork goes into a manila folder and is carried down into a limestone vault, like an underground vault. And you have to take the elevator down, and sometimes
these people are literal villains. Okay, continue.
Yeah, the elevator breaks down. Apparently, Elon Musk said he at least said in this press conference that he was going to post photos of this vault. But like, well, sometimes the elevator breaks down, and then people can't retire, and like literally these people could be doing. And this is just an example of what he's coming face to face with. In terms of like literally a number of people that can retire are being capped by something so ridiculous. I mean, that is like, you see these memes from Indiana Jones of like top government secrets going to a giant warehouse full of big boxes that are managed by top men. And you're like, haha, that's ridiculous. And yet we have a limestone vault where the retirement manila folders are being kept for federal workers. What is happening? Like, we don't need conspiracies about Politico when we have limestone vaults
for retiring. Yeah, I know this is the thing.
Elevators that descend into the darkness to store the folders that no one's ever going to reference ever. That should be electronic as of like the 80s. I mean, I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't. But anyway.
I love you. So tonight I'm gonna have mapidofu, obviously. Yeah. Would you mind making some gyoza for me so I have like something to, because I have about a third of the mapidofu I ate yesterday.
Okay. So you want me to also just make a tiny bit of rice, and then a tiny bit of rice, like a half a pack that I pre-prep, and then 5 gyoza.
Yeah.
And then, okay. And I'm making
I mean,
God.
unless you want to make an
Every night with the
entirely
kids,
new
I'm like,
dish,
I'm just
and
gonna make 10 different things and hope that they eat like 5 bites of one.
unless you want to make something else for me and freeze the mapo tofu that we have.
No, I'm not. No, it doesn't like tofu doesn't really freeze and thaw very well. So
Okay, good. I love you. The mapo tofu you made yesterday, amazing. By the way, you are a skilled mapo tofu maker.
Yeah, I am. But also, you did all the stirring. I saw you stir.
Oh, I stirred it. You see, I provide so much help as a
You
husband.
also added sesame oil, though you didn't realize that sesame oil is a dark colored oil, which is
Yeah, I looked at it. I thought it was a clear colored oil.
Sesame oil we have is brown. Maybe you're thinking of like
all the sesame oil
rice
from our
wine
sesame
vinegar?
oil jar in the container.
It's in the jar. It's in that green jar with a black sticker on it, so you know the difference between the olive oil.
Right, but what I'm asking is that all of our sesame oil?
No, we have a whole nother bottle, and I'm going to refill it.
Okay.
So
Love you to death, Simone.
I love you too. Heads up, NatalCon is almost here. It is at the end of March, and you can still register and get 10% off by entering Collins at checkout. So Google the Natalism Conference. It is in Austin. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be hosting some kind of base camp meetup while we're there, and we'd love to see you. So again, enter Collins at checkout to participate. Also, if you want to participate in some research and you have a kid who was produced through IVF, woo, and they're under 4 years old, please reach out to us. We personally are participating in a really cool IRB study that should help to contribute to the development of better PGTP testing for future couples' embryos, maybe even your own. So reach out to us at partners at Pragmatist Foundation if you'd like to learn more and be connected to the researcher.
2 minutes.
Whoa, there's so many dinosaurs inside. You have all the big dinosaurs, Titan?
I want to see.
Oh, show us the dinosaurs, Titan.
Hey, what happened?